All right, let us jump in. All right, so this first slide, what you're looking at is a map of the US divided up into the 10 regions for the Regional Education Laboratory Program. This is a program that's been in existence since 1966, actually. The contracts under the U.S. Department of Education and the Institute for Education Sciences, which we'll refer to as IES, is a 5-year contract. We are currently in year 3 of the 5-year contract. It runs the calendar year, so we'll begin year 4, January of 2015. And what the RELs do, they have their states that they work with in their region, and we support stakeholders, educators in the region through applied research and evaluation, and also providing technical support, building the capacity of educators to use data for improved education outcomes. And that really is the focus of this recent contract in particular. Sometimes shifts every 5 years, but this one really is building on the capacity for data use. REL Appalachia's mission, we work with educators and policymakers in Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. And the mission really is to support educators and stakeholders in using evidence-based information to guide decision making, so that it informs practice, and it also really focuses on the needs of educators in the region. So all the work of REL Appalachia stems from needs that we have heard through our data collection methods, as well as we've heard informally. So this work with Metro Nashville Public Schools comes from a need that your colleagues expressed to us for this type of support. And how we work with research alliances, everything is organized around a research alliance. And Metro Nashville is very unique because it is only one school district. And I think we might be one of the only research alliances in the country that is just one school district. Typically, you'll have multiple school districts across the country who are participating in alliance, and also possibly other local education agencies or state education agencies can be participants in an alliance. It's bringing people together who share a common need and want to seek common solutions to meeting that need. So what's exciting about Metro Nashville is that we get to go deeper in the district with these issues, and I think that stands to make a really important impact through the work. And the purpose of a research alliance is really to look at a partnership between researchers, technical assistance providers, and educators. So it's not somebody coming in from the outside imposing something on what's already happening in districts. It's collaborative work with bringing a group together that has complementary skill sets and diverse perspectives to really make the work relevant and meaningful to those who are participating in the alliance. So what our role is really seeing ourselves as a collaborative partner and being a facilitator. So it's working with alliances from the get-go to help define purpose and goals, thinking about what type of technical assistance is needed around using data and evidence to inform instruction or improve education outcomes. Also looking at what research or evaluation studies might be called for that really would help an alliance reach its goals and follow through with its research agenda. And a third piece is information dissemination. And so this is where we take what we've learned through the alliance work and disseminate it to a broader spectrum of stakeholders who would have the opportunity to learn about the impact of the alliance's efforts. And a lot of times that happens through webinars and workshops. And this last bullet here is just something that's important for IES to make sure that everybody knows that the REL Appalachia contract is funded by IES, and they fund approved projects activities. But that also means that funds can't be used for alliance members traveling or for any meals. So you'll see that coming into our June workshops. We are not able, REL Appalachia is not able to fund meals during that event. Our next slide talks about the different roles that Alliance members have. There's a core planning team, and your Alliance core planning team consists of a very dedicated group of 10 of your colleagues who have been meeting really since September on a monthly basis, sometimes more often as the work has required. And they were involved at the very early onset of just conceptualizing what this work should and could be, and defining the overarching goals of the Alliance, looking at who would be reached and what types of projects are going to meet the needs that the Alliance has. And then what we have are what we're calling the Expanded Alliance. And this is where we've had the opportunity to invite you all into our conversations. And we're doing it now at this point because up to this point, the core planning team has really been involved in reviewing concept papers, proposals, event materials. But we're bringing you in to the point where it's getting really exciting, where all this planning work that we've been doing um, for several months is culminating in a series of workshops that you might be familiar with that I'm going to talk a little bit more about. But this is where you get to engage and really participating hands-on in those meetings and shaping how that process unfolds, as well as the content and the knowledge and the information that's generated through that process. And that's why it was so important to have such a diverse group of people here with our expanded alliance. We want to make sure that we have all different perspectives represented in this work because we really are asking for your contributions. So also, in addition to your engagement in those processes and your contributions with that, another role of Alliance members is to help spread the word. So help recruit attendees for some of the bigger workshops and also be champions of this work and talking about it to other people in the district. It's kind of that knowledge dissemination that you all are going to be well positioned and well informed to talk about to your colleagues out in schools. So who are our Alliance members? Many of you who've been able to join the call just introduced yourselves. On the left-hand side, we see the list of the core planning team members. So these folks really should be thanked wholeheartedly for their time and dedication that's been spent planning. A lot of planning and thought has gone into these workshops that we're going to be conducting this summer, and it really does take that much work. So that's our core planning team. And then as you see on the right-hand side is the list of all the different roles and titles that you all represent through the Expanded Alliance. It's really exciting to get such a diverse group of people together. And I can't wait for the workshop to hear all the different perspectives because I think it truly does make the work stronger. And I think it makes it much more relevant and increases the likelihood that it's going to be meaningful and sustainable in Metro Nashville. So this is the REL Appalachia staff team that you all are going to get to meet in June. You'll see a photograph of myself, my colleague Dr. Mary Stiers, and Zoe Barley, and Ladada Taylor. All four of us have experience working with the regional education labs, also in providing technical assistance and quite a bit in research and evaluation in education. We've been in classrooms, we've worked at evaluating literacy programs. Those of us at Magnolia Consulting, we've been evaluating literacy programs and literacy instruction for over a decade, from pre-K through high school at all levels. So literacy and the use of data actually in literacy is something that is of great interest and an area of expertise that we're bringing to the table and working with you all. So you'll get to see us in person before you know it. So what are the goals of our Research Alliance? As you'll see, these are broad goals that we set for the potential of our work to really span over a period of 3 years. So this would be 3 calendar years, 2014 to 2016. And the overarching first goal is about identifying and implementing best practices and data use that improve adolescent literacy instruction. So it really stems from the need of having that additional support. We know that data use is not the silver bullet to solving all the problems in adolescent literacy learning and performance, but it certainly is an important piece of the puzzle. And I know that Metro Nashville already appreciates that with the data use practices already occurring in the district. So the goal there is really to improve upon that, to bring in strong evidence-based practices, and to really create a roadmap of what that looks like. So along the way, how do you do that? Part of that is identifying and applying the tools, processes, and skills to develop or implement a collaborative inquiry approach for data use. So here, I just want to take a moment and talk about this term collaborative inquiry because you're going to hear it a lot in our workshops. And so you'll understand it. If you haven't heard of it before, aren't really sure what it is, don't worry. By the end of summer, you'll be an expert in it. So I won't go through a definition of it at length, but what I want to point out the importance of collaborative inquiry is it really gets at how we work together to use data to guide decision making. So data use I know is already occurring in Metro Nashville through the 8-step continuous improvement model, the Plan, Do, Check, Act model. It's happening in schools. There are data coaches working with different schools, some of them having data teams. What the collaborative inquiry approach brings to this conversation and to this practice in Metro Nashville is really a more clearly defined process, a way of engaging in high performing groups that have a high level of trust, that reflect attitudes and values for using data in a collaborative manner. We'll talk about different types of discourse, how we talk and how we communicate around data, what those data conversations look like in a way that really foster trust. The inquiry part of collaborative inquiry really implies that this is a structured and systematic process, walking through a series of steps. And I know that you all are familiar with that in Metro Nashville because they're certainly outlined in the 8-step continuous improvement model. What the collaborative inquiry approach does, it really bumps it up a level. So what does that look like when we're in teams? What does it mean to frame questions and identify problems and think about what types of interventions we want to examine, and think about collectively how do we interpret data, how do we draw conclusions, and how do we make data informed decisions based on those. So a lot of that is happening at the group level through a collaborative inquiry approach. I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that to kind of highlight the value added aspect of bringing this to the table of the data use practices that many educators in Metro Nashville already implement. So the next slide shows a list of our proposed activities for 2014. And the reason why the word proposed is because not all of them have been approved by IAS. We couldn't start writing proposals until January. So we've been very busy, and the first 4 are actually approved. The second 2 are under development. And I'm going to talk about each of these briefly after this slide. But the first one looks at the collaborative inquiry workshops with Dr. Laura Lipton. And following on to that, we'll have a fishbone session to identify root causes of barriers to effective data use. And then as we look at our root causes, if we think about interventions or initiatives that effectively address those root causes, what would be the outcomes then that we would expect to see? And that's where we follow on with this session on developing logic models. So what are the outcomes for effective data use practices using a collaborative inquiry approach at classroom, school, and district levels? The fishbone and logic model sessions really get at more conceptual ideas. They can be somewhat abstract. The logic model makes it a little bit more tangible. But where the innovation configurations come in is really helping to make those practices concrete. So it's kind of where the rubber meets the road. It's great to have outcomes. It's great to know the causes of barriers to effective data use. But so what? That's an important question. So what? So what do we do? How can we move any of this into practice? We believe that the innovation configurations are going to help you all do that as an alliance, and then however you choose to disseminate that in the district through a roadmap that you might create. The innovation configurations take these practices and put them on a continuum of variation. So if you're working, say, from an ideal practice to an unacceptable practice and all the variations in between. And what this does is really helps everybody be on the same page about what these look like and knowing the practice when you see it. So it helps create shared understanding and agreement of what a collaborative inquiry approach looks like to data use. So it's making it very concrete. And we feel like that's important work for this alliance, as it'll form the foundation upon which you can identify, okay, so what professional development are we going to need to help support our educators in implementing these practices as intended. The next bullet gets at a survey of collaborative inquiry and data use practices. So one of the things I think as an organization, as a district, that's so important is to know what you know. Do you know what you know? Are you using data to inform and monitor what is happening in your district around data use practices? This survey addresses that need. It is a survey that is currently being led by a national expert in data use, Dr. Jeffrey Wayman. He has an existing survey, and through the work with Metro Nashville Alliance, we're going to be improving upon it, bringing in other experts in the country. Ellen Mandanock, I believe, is also somebody who's done work with Metro Nashville. She's contributing to this survey as well. So we've got the best thinkers coming together to develop a survey of data use practices for Metro Nashville. And then this last bullet is a bridge event. This is one of the dissemination opportunities for reaching a broader audience around data use and structuring conversations for data use. So just briefly on the workshop with Dr. Lipton. It's going to happen in two parts, June 3rd and July 15th. And if you're asking why those dates, it's because when we met with the core planning team and we sat down and thought about, all right, when is it going to work for Metro Nashville? This is the response that we got in looking at calendars and looking at other professional development that might be scheduled. This is the recommendation from the core planning team that we would cluster these events together in June and then in July. So what's going to happen in June is Dr. Lipton is going to focus on those data use practices that she talks about in her book, Got Data, Now What? And she's going to be very specific to literacy. And you'll have hands-on opportunities to practice different phases of what she calls her collaborative inquiry cycle. And that's the model, the circle with the triangle in the center that you're seeing there on the screen. When she comes back in July, she's going to focus on what are the organizational supports and conditions that allow collaborative inquiry to be really successful in schools. So there she's going to be talking about discourse and the different ways that we have conversation through dialogue, discussion, and decision making. She's going to talk about characteristics of high performing groups, those norming behaviors, how to foster trust. So that's what's going to be the focus of the July 15th. And that piece right there, I think, is so incredibly important because that gets at how we work together to be effective in our data use practices. So for the June 3rd and the June 15th workshops, we are opening it up beyond Alliance members, so it will include you all. But since our main target audience in the district are middle schools, we are inviting teams of 4 to come from middle schools, and we left it up to principals to decide how they want to staff those teams, but we suspect that there will be literacy coaches and teachers. And between those of you all representing middle schools on the Alliance and the middle schools coming to Dr. Lipton's workshop, we'll have 20 of 39 middle schools represented at the workshop. So we're really excited about the reach that Dr. Lipton's work is going to have in the district. Okay, so following on Dr. Lipton's June 3rd workshop focusing on data use practices within the collaborative inquiry cycle, we'll have 2 days together, and this will just be our group. So, Dr. Lipton's group, I think we're looking at 120 people total. And then our alliance group will be around 35 to 40, attending also June 4th and June 5th. As I mentioned, we'll talk about root causes of barriers to effective data use. So we understand data use practices are happening. We understand that there could be just some stellar schools that are engaging in really effective data use practices. And there might be others where there are a lot of barriers. So Metro Nashville is just on the forefront here, I think, with the data use practices and the sophistication of their data warehouse, the use of data coaches. So they just really, what I'm hearing is just want to remove any other barriers that are out there. So identifying those root causes are going to be really important because that's ultimately what the district wants to eliminate so that data use can be used optimally in middle school literacy instruction. So, building on that work from our second day, focusing on root causes, we'll move into creating logic models to further define what are teachers doing, what are principals doing as a result of what are the outcomes associated with effective data use. So, we'll be defining that. And then July 16th, as I had mentioned, we'll be doing the innovation configurations for collaborative inquiry practices. Then what you would want to know at this point is for the data use survey development, we are currently working on the proposal. That piece of it goes into IES in May, along with the revised version of the survey. So we really just launched this a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Wayman, about a month ago, with Dr. Wayman and myself as the co-principal investigator. So that'll be under review. IES has to approve our proposal. We will be doing a pilot study in the fall with Metro Nashville. So we've been teaming with the research and assessment group over there. They will be putting it up using SurveyMonkey, and it will be piloted with a group of about 60 people. And as this comes to fruition, we'll talk more about it. And certainly, if you have questions, I can answer them today, or even when I see you in June, more about the survey. And what we intend is that by next spring that you all would have in hand a very robust, valid, and reliable survey that you can administer over time to measure data use practices in Metro Nashville. And not only would this survey be relevant for middle school literacy instruction, but also beyond. So it's something that you could use for high school science educators. You can use it for elementary teachers. It could be used at any level and any content area. It will still be relevant and help provide really targeted and rich feedback about data use of collaborative inquiry practices in the district. And we believe that this will help you identify barriers and also identify what is needed to break down those barriers and to improve practices over time. So we're really excited at the opportunity for you all to have this tool to be able to use. And then our last proposed activity is the bridge event. And this is based on a report that our sister lab, REL Pacific, created called 5 Steps for Structuring Data-Informed Conversations in Action and Education. And what we really see is this being kind of a complementary information source to what we're doing. You know, it's relatively a small group that will be able to attend Dr. Lipton's workshop, and even smaller following on with the work that the Alliance will be doing. But this is a way to reach a broader audience, both within the Metro Nashville community as well as across the state. This is still in the planning phase, so things could very much change. It will be free for educators to attend. We're looking at the possibility of doing this in September and teaming with the Tennessee Learning Forward Group as well as Tennessee SCORE. And Margie has been just really spearheading it on the Metro Nashville side of things. So not really, like I said, that we're still in the planning phase of that, but we see it as being complementary and just an easier way to kind of move the discussion and share information about data informed conversations with a broader group. And that concludes the description of our activities that are coming up. Your role, obviously, participating in the root cause and logic model and the innovation configuration. Because it's a smaller group, we really are going to be asking you to contribute to those conversations. We have a diverse group, so it'll be exciting, I think, and very important to hear the different perspectives that everybody has to offer when we look at data use practices and all the pieces that consists of. So that is it for the overview of REL Appalachia and Metro Nashville Public Schools Research Alliance. And I really do appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about this work with you. It's fun to see how it's progressed over time, and we're really excited to be on the ground with you all in June to engage in these activities. So with that, I'm going to stop my portion of this, and if there are any questions, Margie, I don't know if you've been monitoring those. If you would like to ask any of them, we can open it up for questions.
So Shannon asked a question about research assessment evaluation being part of the process, and I answered her in the chat box, but in case we have people who are on the conference call and not on the webinar, we have been collaborating with research assessment evaluation. They helped with the proposal, and then we also have submitted it to the research assessment and evaluation. There's a research committee that has to approve all research that occurs in the district, and they did approve it. I believe it was end of March. Is that right, Stephanie? 1st of April?
Yes. Yes.
Or at that point,
yes.
It has been approved by that committee. If you have any other questions, please type them in the chat box, or if you want to unmute your line. Stephanie, I don't think this is going to take as long as you thought it was.
I don't think so either, but it's always good just in case. Just in case it's a big group.
Just in case people have lots of questions. One thing I do want to tell everyone is that I will be sending out a follow-up email because, like I said, I know we had some school-based people and other people that got caught up and weren't able to attend. The follow-up email will have a link. Stephanie does have some homework for us, and it is to read 2 IES practice guides, and we have hard copies of those, and I can send those out to you, and I can go ahead and send you a copy of the Got Data Now What book, because I saw Tammy's question about the book. I do have copies of those, and I can send those out, and I'll get those to you hopefully within the next 2 weeks. But in the follow-up email, I'll give you the link to the webinar, and then the guides are also online. I'll give you the link to those guides, and then I'm also going to include the link for the Got Data Now What. If you go to the Solution Tree website, they have all of the PDF versions of the reproducibles so that you can use those. So Shannon had a question about the number of middle schools. We have 11 middle schools who have chosen to participate in the Alliance. I could go over those. If you give me just a minute, I can look those up. But not only do we have middle schools participating, but we have community members. We have, I think, every department of central office is represented except maybe transportation and food services and like finance. But we have human capital. We have student support services, leadership and learning, social emotional, exceptional ed, learning technology, EL, and then we have school-based literacy coaches, a middle school principal, some assistant principals, and literacy teachers. So Shannon, that's a good question. Can the schools still participate if they haven't signed up. If they could let me know by the end of this week, we can probably sneak them in. But after this week, logistically, I'm just going to have to make that deadline. So if you know, and anyone on this call, if you know of any middle school that wants to participate, then please let us know ASAP, because we are getting all the logistics.
Yeah, we are actively printing handouts and making folders, and we're doing that here. I'm based in Virginia, so we are getting materials, and it's based on our total number of attendees that we're expecting. So we can be flexible and nimble. We always are, and we're happy to have more middle school teams there. That's absolutely important. So we will make it work on this end. The more time that we have, so that we're not last minute, the better. But our goal is to have all the materials and copies, folders for all individual participants to Margie, shipping no later than next week.
So Shannon asked about the schools. We have Donaldson Middle School, Two Rivers Middle, Marshall Middle, McKissick Middle, Haynes Middle, Jerry Baxter Middle, Goodlettsville, Cross, Bright, East, Nashville, and Margaret Allen.
Margie, could you maybe send that as a list in the meeting notes so that everybody has it?
Yes.
That would be great. Thank you.
So I'll include school list. And actually, I mean, I can share all the attendee lists, because even though we have 11 middle schools that chose to send teams, when you add like the literacy coaches and the literacy teachers and the assistant principals and the principal that applied, we have about 20 different middle schools being represented. You may want to know that. And then who else is on this? We're still working on filling in some names. Like all the school improvement facilitators will be there. I've got to get their names. So you'll see that we're still working on the attendee list. So it's not the final list. But yes, I'm happy to share that with. And Shannon wrote that, I'd like to ask questions. But you don't have to finish if you don't want to, Shannon. Because it's the questions that makes everything better.
Questions are good.
Yes. Okay, now she has another one. And I think I answered, yes, I answered that question. And Stephanie, if I miss any questions while I'm talking, let me know.
Okay.
So I've got, yes, good question, Shannon. The data coaches were invited, so Mary Lauren Seeley will be there, and she sent me, I think, 4 names. I can't remember. I think it was, I want to say it was Michelle, Katie, I mess up her name, Ariel Broxer, and Beth Lucan. I think those were the ones. And Brian Fowler, who works on our data warehouse team, is also going to be involved.
Good question, Sheila. Will we receive a hard copy of Got Data Now What?
Yes, I have the books here in my office. The people who joined me today, I guess they got an added bonus. They actually got their book today. But when I send the IES guides, I will include that in the packet. I'll send it through the school mail. I can go ahead and send you a copy.
I'll just take this opportunity to say, the fact that Metro Nashville has funded, purchasing the books, and also the lunches for everyone attending, and the commitment of you all as Alliance members really shows the dedication and commitment, and also the investment in this work. And I know the core planning team has probably heard me say this ad nauseum, but I'm not interested in bringing work and collaborating on anything that isn't really going to be internalized and owned by Metro Nashville. And so this isn't another layer, it's not another ornament on the Christmas tree. We really want it to integrate and work with what you all are doing. And so the support of these resources, like having the books was optional for the workshop, but the fact that the district is funding that really just shows the amount of support. And so I think for us as an alliance, and you all as alliance members there, I hope that you'll really hear that and see and feel that commitment and know that it's really within our hands collaboratively to make this be impactful in the district. So I hope you will feel inspired by the work that we're doing and really carry that out through the work in the district. Any other questions? You see my contact information there. Feel free to email me if you have any questions that you didn't want to share with the group today, or Margie as well. And then I look forward to meeting you all in person in June, and there will be the opportunity for us to have further discussion about any aspect of the Alliance and your role in it. So Margie, I guess we just really need to wrap up in terms of next steps, right?
Yeah, so like I said, the next steps, I will send a follow-up email, which I guess, Stephanie, you'll need to send me the link to the go-to meeting.
Yeah.
Webinar archive. So I'll send out the follow-up meeting, or the follow-up email right after she gets me that link. That will include links to IES practice guides that we'd like for you to look at, because that's going to help inform our work. I'll also be sending each of you hard copies of those IES practice guides along with the book Got Data Now What. And if you can just try to keep I know schedules are tough, but if you can please, I know I've tried to save those dates since March, so you can keep those dates on your calendar so that we can have your perspective there and really create a good roadmap for our district for moving forward. That's what I'm excited about, because I'm with Stephanie on this. I don't want to do this as an exercise of futility. I want it to actually be something that is useful for informing the work in this district, and that we get to see it implemented over the next couple of years. Thank you so much for your time. If there are no other questions, and I think we're going to get done early. Like I said, we scheduled a little longer because we didn't know the questions. We'd rather end early than go over. So, all right. I don't see any more questions or hear anyone. So I'm going to disconnect and hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you all. Have a great day. See you in June.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.